Time now for your forewarned weather with Cedric Haynes.
All right, happy Labor Day, everyone. Let's get you out the door here with your forecast. And as we talk about Labor Day, it means a lot of things. But for us here in the meteorological world, it's the unofficial end of summer and the unofficial beginning of a meteorological autumn or meteorological fall out there, at least is when we keep records here in the Weather Center. So we go September, October, November for fall in the Weather Center. But on your calendar, of course, it's a little longer, right? So the official countdown clock shows us we still have 21 days before we hit fall here on the calendar for the fall equinox there. But still, either way, we are oozing right on into that fall season. But to put this in a better perspective, let's talk about what else we're counting down to, right? How about the average first snowfall of the season? Well, that typically takes place in Salt Lake City around November the 8th. So we're officially only about 68 days away from the average official first snowfall. Now, keep in mind that's the average, which means there are some years this happens before November the 8th. Some years it happens afterwards. But, yeah, we're talking about less than 70 days now before the average official first snowfall here in Salt Lake City. Even more perspective for you, how about the mountains? Yeah, for our friends in Park City, the average first snow is only about 40 days away, which usually takes place around October the 11th. Again, sometimes it happens before then, sometimes it's a little after that, but about 40 days or so, and we're going to be talking about at least thinking about the chance of seeing snowfall around the area. So, yeah. Even putting it in more perspective, how about your holiday countdown? About 60 days now until Halloween, only about 87 days until the big turkey day, or gobble day, whatever you want to call it. Out there right now, 50 degrees in Logan, 50 in Heber. We've got 54 in Delta, 61 degrees in Moab, 58 in Escalante and Cedar City, and 76 degrees currently in St. George. Let's talk about your Labor Day forecast because that's today, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be a toasty one out there, not necessarily feeling like fall yet. 60s this morning. We'll be in the low 80s by lunchtime. We'll be in the low 90s this afternoon. That's a few degrees above average for this time of the year. In southwest Utah, low 70s jumping to the low 90s by lunchtime. We'll be about 102 this afternoon. So it's going to be a toasty one for sure across southwest portions of the state. As you look at your highs across the state, near 90 up towards Cache Valley. Same story over towards the Uintas. 91 degrees in Wendover, 94 Moab, 90 if you're heading to the lake. Look at that. Yeah, 102 for St. George. All right, here's the weather map. We know the story. High pressure, the big blue H, that's sitting close to us. That's going to mean sunshine and a lot of hot weather. But this thing expands all the way up well into Canada as we go into the middle of the week. That means what goes up must come down across the east, and a big trough of low pressure develops off towards the Midwest. This is where they could be dealing with their first frost or freeze in the coming days. But for us, we stay on the warm side of that ridge of high pressure. But it does begin to back off a little bit by the end of the week into the weekend, and that could allow for a flow that could send in a little bit of moisture and some slightly cooling temperatures by the time we get towards that time frame. Futurecast showing us here as we go throughout today, looking pretty quiet across the state. But notice as we go into your Tuesday afternoon, we have a hit or miss isolated shower possible across southwest Utah. And then by the time we get towards your Wednesday, we'll add in a chance of at least an isolated storm across most of southern Utah south of I-70. I think that chance will continue to build as we go throughout the rest of the week. So let's look at your temperatures. 102 in St. George for your Labor Day. We're back down into the low to mid 90s by the weekend with increasing chances for scattered showers and storms in the afternoon. The Wasatch Front, Labor Day, 92 degrees for you, 93 for your Tuesday. But look at that. We head back down into the low 90s and eventually the 80s by the weekend, and we'll introduce a chance of a few isolated showers and storms. All right, let's get a check on your traffic this morning. Of course, it's a busy day. It's a holiday. That doesn't mean that everyone is off work, though. We know some folks are going to have to be laboring on this Labor Day. And as you look at the traffic here, Bangor Highway, maybe you do have the day off. Heading to the airport, looking pretty good this morning when it comes to traffic. So we're not seeing any major congestion. So it looks like folks are probably most likely at their destination. Of course, we'll continue to watch our local roads as well. I-15 southbound. This is at Cross Hollow Road in Cedar City. Oh, we've got somebody out there moving. It is Labor Day. Traffic is light. Let's hope it stays that way throughout the morning. That's a look at your traffic and weather. Back to you guys.